Reddit, what's the most chaotic good thing you've ever seen? Was out running in a park and saw some kid's dog running away from him straight towards me. It didn't look like they were playing, but that the kid was actually struggling to get his dog back. I roared and charged straight at the dog, who immediately ran back to its owner. This guy chaotic goods. There was a cliff over the water we used to jump off of in high school. It was a well-known swimming hole and sometimes M-heads would hang out there. This one day about 30 of us were there and this one guy about 65 years old, but looked like a worse version of Tom Hanks in Cast Away. Long nappy hair and beard, leather skin, and skinny. He had his own case of beer, but smelled of stale cigs and mold and we leave him alone, he leaves us. He is just sitting at the top of the bluff watching and drinking. A group of us jump and as we are walking up the trail to the top there is a giant like 4 featuring copperhead. Someone yelled out and this dude practically jumps down the rocks in 3 jumps and without even sizing up the situation. He just lunges at the snake, grabs it behind the head, lifts it above his head, and lets out the most primal scream I've ever heard. I can still perfectly see him holding that snake in his fist with its tails curling around his arm while screaming in his stained jorts and matted hair. It was amazing. I guess I left out the ending. He unwrapped the snake from his arm and launched the snake out in the water on the opposite side from where we were swimming and went right back to sitting and drinking. Didn't say a word to us. We kept telling him how awesome it was and he just kept nodding. M is one heck of a drug. You guys and gals probably won't believe this story, but here it goes. I have a relative, let's call him Jabber, that I would describe as the perfect example of neutral evil. He's always scheming and looking for ways to screw people, even his own family. Here's the most prime example I've yet personally seen of chaotic good just thwomping neutral evil. Jabber was going to move from one house to another and hired a cleaning lady to be paid under the table as her residential status was less than legal, to whip the house into shape so that it could be sold. It was a job that took over a month, and he kept putting off her payment. He's real good at bullshitting and stringing people along. Finally the house is done, but she's still not paid. He gives her excuses for a little while longer until one day when she showed up at the door and I guess he decided to end his little game. He straight tells her, I ain't gonna pay you crap. What are you gonna do? Call the cops. You're an illegal and you'll get your butt deported. BWAHAHAHAA. She leaves and tries to enlist the help of a couple male family members to scare him into paying, but he just wouldn't come to the door and thought it was funny. Until one day, he was away from home for the entire day, and according to witnesses, a pickup truck and a few men showed up at the house. They were seen leaving the house with his big screen TV. They apparently got in through a window that had always had a bad lock, something the cleaning lady was very likely to have noticed. They left without taking or disturbing anything else at all, but the TV was his prized possession and coincidentally was worth about what he owed to the cleaning lady. They could have taken a lot of other things, including cash, but declined to do so. They basically took what they were owed. Jabber was furious and beside himself. He even cried about it. No one in the family felt sympathetic for him whatsoever. Was sent to an abusive group home for mentally ill teenagers. One guy would distract staff by asking for anxiety meds, almost odd a couple times, so we could pick the lock to steal food so people wouldn't starve. R.I.P. Zach. I feel like I need more details on this story. This happened while I was in 5th grade. At my elementary school, if you didn't have money to buy a lunch, you got the poor kids' lunch. It was a PB&J, a milk, and a piece of whatever fruit we had that day. That's it. It was a really crappy lunch too. Nobody liked having it. One of the other 5th graders usually had the PB&J crappy lunch, and she was getting really tired of eating it every day. So one of the 5th grade boys broke into the lunch lady's office, stole the paper records for Punch Juice. This was in the mid-90s, before those things were moved to paperless, and edited the girl's account balance to say she had like $30 on it. The same boy did that like 3 more times before he got caught, so the girl went several months without having to eat the crappy no money lunch. Back in the day I went to Blockbuster to get a copy of the DVD extended edition of Lord of the Rings. It was a big deal at the time and I was worried it would be sold out. Stoner Clark told me that they were sold out but that the only one we have is the copy my boss told me to put aside for him. but he's always telling me to put customers first, so here you go. Thank you, Stoner Clark. Malicious compliance. Always like. I witnessed a bartender slowly wean an alcoholic regular off of whiskey by reducing the amount of Jack in his Jack and Cokes. At the request of the man's wife, the guy discovered that he wasn't even drinking to drink. He was just in it for the ritual of the thing, and so he kept coming in to hang out, shoot the crap, play some darts, and have a few Cokes. That's a great wife and bartender. I'm a member of a social club, and I go in for the social aspect as much as anything else. Trying to lose weight a few years ago, and prove to my alcoholic ex that it was possible to be social without alcohol, I started drinking exclusively Diet Coke and water. No one said anything about it, and I got to maintain my social life. I remember in middle school there was a lunch lady who would ever so slightly overcook cookies or pizza or fries from the snack line so that she could say that they were not suitable to sell, and then she would give them to the kids who were getting the crappy meal because they had no money in their lunch accounts. I was driving to work once and ran into dead stop traffic in a spot that I normally wouldn't. A dude had his SUV stopped sideways across most of both lanes, one lane each way, to block traffic while he was picking up a turtle and bringing it across the road. Fricked up everyone's commute for a few minutes just to save a turtle. Lots of people were honking and yelling, but he didn't even flinch or say anything. Got back in his car and drove off, never to be seen again. My grandmother spent years stopping to pick up turtles out of the road and put them near the Pond Woods field they happened to be heading towards. This happened so much people started buying her turtle figurines. She had probably 200-300 by the time she died. I try to stop for any turtles I see, and I get immensely sad every time I see a dead one in the road. When I was in high school, there was one kid who was about a foot taller than everyone in the class and built like a rhino. He would beat up kids every day for no reason and would get away with it because no one would do anything about it. One day we had a casual teacher spot him from across the school beating on some younger kids. This teacher ran at him and hit him like a train. Flipped this kid like an egg. The bully left the school a few weeks later and the teacher lost his job. But he will always be remembered as the one who saved the school. I've been out of school now for a few years and it still comes up in conversation. Similar teacher in my junior high. Marines. Tough freaking dude. Supposedly a few years ago a student wouldn't stop harassing a female student, physically and verbally. Teacher couldn't do anything except keep warning him or try to send him out, but he was being non-compliant. Teacher had enough and decked him. He was fired, but 3-4 teachers from his department also quit because it was bulls. My late best friend was super into drinking whiskey and snorting coke. He got his tax return and decided to drink a fifth and do an 8-ball, and disappeared. About 6 hours later we hear something by the trash cans, and it's Pat with 2 full bags of litter. He walked the entire neighborhood twice picking up all the trash including the cigarette butts. Dude, similar thing happened with my old roommates. I went to bed with them taking a ridiculous amount of shrooms one night expecting the place to be even more trash than it was, but awoke to them having stayed up all night cleaning the place and making breakfast for us all. Most pleasant surprise of my life, TBH. A notorious grad school bully ripped my Game Boy Color with Pokemon Red out of my hands and said gimme that, while I was headed to the back of the school bus. In defeat, I waddled to my seat and started to cry just thinking about how I was going to explain to my mom that my birthday gift had been stolen. But before I could let out an audible whimper, he marches back and tosses my Game Boy in my lap casually and says, "Here you go, crybaby, have a look, haha," while pocketing a Game Genie and walking away. Through hot tears I looked at my screen and saw the brand new Pokédex entry, Mew. During the height of all the playground SS and truck rumors, I was confused and happy all at once, but just mostly glad he wasn't going to kick my butt. If you're reading this, Big Devin, you weren't all that bad after all. A word. Side note, the bully grew up to be a fire captain in my hometown. Absolute unit, that guy. Once a year, there's this old gentleman who buys out the entire Alamo Drafthouse in Kansas City, all 6 theaters, and makes it an admission-free day for everyone to come see the movies. Since his wife died watching one of their favorite movies there, he's really chill about it too. Doesn't show up in person or ask for anything. This is so cool. I've been in KC for 4 years and never heard of it. Was driving 130 kilometers per hour, the legal limit here, on a 2-lane highway, just about to overtake a small van that was right behind a truck, when at the last second the driver in the van just sways into the left lane, forcing me to choose between swerving to the left a bit while braking hard or basically have a high-speed car crash straight away. So I regain control of my car and out of frustration honk once to let the guy know I was there, and he just nearly killed both of us. Thinking he must have not seen me because no sane human being would do that otherwise. Wrong. Instantly the guy decides to brake check me while refusing to pass the truck to keep us both there while he kept braking and braking again. He eventually even passed the truck and went to the right lane to lull me into thinking he had calmed down, only to slam his van back to the left as soon as I nearly passed the truck and start the whole process again. At this point I had kind of settled into my fate and accepted I'd be stuck behind this truck until the lunatic in front of me would calm down and decide to move on. All of a sudden a driver in a pretty fast Audi that had ended up behind me due to Mr. Brake check slowing down traffic had enough of this whole mess. He overtook the truck using the emergency lane, quickly overtook the van man and decided to pull the mother of all brake checks on this guy, literally forcing him off the right side of the road by instantly cutting off any route the guy could take without hitting the Audi that was now in front of him. I took this opportunity to finally pass the truck and resume my journey while in my rear view mirror I saw a cloud of dust where the van had come to a stop somewhere beside the road, unscathed as far as I could see. A minute later, while I was sitting behind my wheel, somewhat baffled at the events I had just witnessed, the vigilante road justice warrior in his Audi pulled up to me on the left lane, gave me a quick nod, and quickly accelerated off into the distance. Holy crap. The legend of the Audi driver. While that could have ended very badly for the Audi driver, the truck and you, I'm glad it really only fricked the butthole causing a disturbance in the first place. My dad's mom was super abusive. Tried to start a cult. Beat and neglected her kids. Just an all-around awful person. Once she was on her deathbed, she was unable to talk or really communicate effectively, and she hated Catholics. So, my dad had it arranged that every day, a Catholic priest would come in and pray over her. It wasn't really proportional to the amount of suffering she caused in her life, but it was pretty dang funny. We have a few, technically illegal, graffiti artists around town, who all have different tags. They also seem to have different territories, as you only see one tag in any specific area. A lot of us love their work, and they all keep it G-rated so the city property owners never minded. Then, overnight, an extremely xenophobic drawing appeared on a black business owner's front windows, along with a tag from a guy we'll call Jay. It was quickly removed, but understandably many people became worried about the graffiti artists in general. Over the next few days, Jay's entire territory was plastered with drawings from different tags. They covered every bit of his work with puppies, rainbows, cupcakes, anything considered cute. Each time he did a new one, it was covered up the next night. Eventually he stopped trying, and his territory remains a sort of neutral zone. Dude, street folk have their code, and people don't realize it. There's a reason that actual graffiti art doesn't get defaced. Nobody wants a defacing war between two decently skilled hoodlums armed with the knife and spray paint. A woman was walking around our apartment complex sticking printed out MLM flyers on people's cars. Guy followed her about 100 yards back, collecting them up again. Used to be a bouncer at a popular music venue bar. I worked the door for a Gorgle Bordello show. I had never heard of them, but it was a sellout show. They call themselves Gypsy Punk Rock anyways. I've never confiscated so many pocket knives in my life, and everyone was really cool about leaving them with us or taking them to their car. Show starts and I move up front kind of like an Overwatch position. Band starts to get crazy and the entire crowd is in a cycloning mosh pit. The drummer is crowd surfing and people are going ape crap. I see this tiny woman, 21 plus bar, and she is enjoying herself, but she falls down in the middle of a mosh pit, and unlike anything else I've seen, like half the crowd completely stops and gives her space and gets her back up, and they all start going again, her included. This happened 2 or 3 more times with the same polite and cautious outcome. I was in awe. Gypsy is a nice, smelly, but nice, amazing concert too. When I was like 11, I was at the beach with family. I found this stuff called fart spray, exactly what it sounds like, and really wanted it. But my dad said no. My aunt decided it'd be funny to buy me it and torture her brother, so she bought it in secret. We met my dad and some other family to all ride this shuttle further down the boardwalk. I couldn't hold my excitement and blabbed immediately about my new purchase. My dad took it from me and scolded my aunt. I sat down defeated. Few minutes later, this drunk lady and her friends get on the bus, clearly out doing a night of bar hopping. The one lady is being really loud and cussing a lot. My dad asked her to tone it down and was berated with profanities. He sat quietly through it. Then as the lady went to get off the bus, I see him hit her with a squirt from the fart spray. So perfectly childish, LOL. I didn't see it personally, but I heard the story from this guy's roommate, who did get to witness it. It's freshman year of college. Two of my neighbors, Colin and George, are rushing the same frat. My roommate had a thing for George, so she invited him and his roommates over for breakfast one morning. We ask about what they're up to, make small talk, all that jazz. Turns out George was just banned from the frat for doing drugs. What did he do, you may ask? He doesn't remember, but according to Colin, they were at a party and George saw someone slip something into a girl's drink. Rather than take a logical approach, tell her not to drink it, take it from her and pour it out, so on and so forth, George ripped it from her hand and chugged it himself. The Stop a Douchebag movement going on in Russia, where members patrol areas where drivers are parking illegally using sidewalks for roads etc. and ask them to turn around or move their car. If they refuse, they slap an enormous douchebag sticker with heavy duty adhesive across the windshield. They have a YouTube channel as well where you can watch it in action. A friend was working in the O when she was going to school and a woman came in who had her arm broken when someone stole her purse. As that woman was being checked, a man came in who was hit by a truck after the driver saw him stealing a woman's purse and running away. Purse was returned. Restaurant. Down a cook. Down 2 servers. Getting busy. Both cook and server doing their best. One mother from a table steps up, talks to server, and suddenly she's delivering plates to tables, taking drink orders and filling, delivering for a solid half an hour until another server rocks up for work. Hope like mad they got their meal comped. I remember reading a headline in our Not the Onion that I'll try best to paraphrase. Man high on LSD turns himself into police for theft after breaking into his neighbor's house and stealing their dog because he mistakenly imagined the building to be on fire. A lot of people saying that's not how acid works. This was the reason he gave, which was probably simpler than explaining what was really going on in his head at the time. My grandfather, when he was in about his 30s, was out of country for some reason I can't remember. The day before his flight back he got very sick. He could hardly get on the plane, but he was ready to get home. He was on the plane and noticed that no one had bought the seat next to him. He asked the flight attendant if he could use it to lie down and hopefully sleep off his illness, and she allowed him to. Well, a bit after the flight started, this very large man went on a very public rant about how his seat was too small. The flight attendant kindly informed the man that in the future he should buy 2 seats. Well, the man wouldn't have this, so he points to my sick grandfather and shouts that he shouldn't get 2 seats as he only needed 1, and that he should get my grandfather's 2 seats and take his 1. The flight attendant told the man that they would not be switching. The man only threw a bigger fit. After a while of this man acting like a very large baby, my grandfather willingly gave up his seats to the man to end his whining. So they switched. After a while, my grandfather noticed that the man was reading this very large book. Eventually the large man fell asleep. In front of the entire plane, my grandfather stood up, walked over to the sleeping man, tore out the last 5 pages of his book, and went and sat back down. No one said a word about it. I love that this happened before the internet and that guy would have had to find another physical copy of the book to read the ending. Friend of mine named Ivan. Years ago I was really poor. I was so poor that when rent was due, I had to fast for 2 weeks until I got paid. Anyway, my friend Ivan dropped by and asked for something to drink, and I told him I had water in the fridge. He saw that was all I had in the fridge, 1 gallon of water. He checked my cupboards. I thought he was looking for a cup, so I told him which cupboard the cups were in. He just said, "Dude, I'll be back in 30 minutes. 30 minutes later he shows up with 10 bags of groceries. At first I was like, dude, you didn't. He cut me off and goes, when's the last time you ate? I couldn't bring myself to say it and he just went, aha. Yes I did, bro. I'll never forget that. This isn't really chaotic good. This is just a good butt homie. My little sister was with an abusive guy. She had an infant daughter with him. He beat the living crap out of her one day. Little sis and baby came home to stay with us that day after the guy was dangling the baby, my niece that I love dearly, off the balcony threatening to drop her. My mother tackled him and ran with the baby and my sister. Guy shows up at our house that night. My pops comes running full speed and beat the crap out of him. So satisfying because I was outside paranoid the guy would show up, but dad was already ready. Go dad. I knew someone who once played an extended prank on a friend where he filled up his gas tank. When the tank was low he'd steal his keys, sneak out, go to the station, fill it up, bring the car back and put the keys back. Took him months to figure out what was going on. Why can't someone prank me like this? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.